this is Conspiracy Divers episode 1 and episode 2, I guess, in a way. So look, yeah, today we're gonna find out the conspiracy of the cheese caves. Let's just fucking figure it out. You know what I mean? Millie, I appreciate the follow too. So let's get it.
The moisture in the unripe cheese would evaporate out, cracking and hardening the cheese and basically turning it into an inedible milk rock. But according to the USDA, American milk consumption has dropped from 275 pounds per capita in 19...
Oh, wait a second. Hold up, dude. We're trying to figure out the conspiracy. All right.
If you were to go 100 feet underground, you may shiver as the temperature drops to around 58 degrees Fahrenheit. But in the cheese caves of the United States, you would find it to be much colder. 36 degrees, in fact, due to an elaborate system of pumps running a steady stream.
Question. Why is there cheese? I think I know a little bit of it, but I need to know the history. Why is there cheese in these caves? Why so much cheese?
Of coolants from above ground. Within the cave are thousands of red, orange, and yellow barrels lining the floor, each one weighing 680 pounds and filled to the brim with dairy products.
600 pounds of fucking cheese barrels, dude. For what? That's a nice ass cave, dude. That's the most exclusive cave I've ever seen, actually.
These limestone caves in Springfield.
You see how distorted this photo is? I feel like this photo was not supposed to be seen by normal people either. Like, this is an insider inside. He took the photo. He works there, and he's like, yeah, we gotta let this shit get out, dude. We gotta bust this bitch open. Wide open. Cheese caves? We gotta let motherfuckers know that there's cheese down here.
Missouri, are home to the United States' largest stockpile of its 1.4 billion pound surplus of cheese.
1.4 billion, dude. Why do you need that much cheese? You know what's the even craziest thing if you actually think about it? Dog, there is homeless people. People that are starving. And we have 1.4 billion pounds of cheese in these caves. Stingy, I tell you.
But the path that led to how the cheese caves came to be can be traced back to the mid-20th century. The cheesy story all started in 1949, when the Agricultural Act of 1949 gave the Commodity Credit Corporation, a government-owned corporation dedicated to stabilizing farm incomes, the authority to purchase dairy products like cheese from farmers. The CCC had been around since the Great Depression, when it was created as...
I was about to say, dude, from what I know about the cheese cave theory anyways, it has to do with the Great Depression, and it was something about like people were so poor or something like that they couldn't afford anything, and cheese, dairy, was one of those products that you could make into cheese and it could be stored forever. And that's why. And dude, think about that shit. Does that mean that the cheese we eat is like 80 to 100 years old? What the fuck?
That the dairy industry begged the government to change their ways. So in 1977, under President Jimmy Carter...
Wait, we just skipped like hella. That's like a 30-year difference, I'm pretty sure. I could be tripping, but that's like 30 years difference. What the fuck is going on?
The government poured money into the dairy industry, motivating production and alleviating the crisis, putting $2 billion into the dairy industry in just 4 years.
So this is, wait a second, how much money? Wait, what?
And alleviating the crisis, putting $2 billion into the dairy industry in just 4 years.
Look, this is something, maybe I'm tripping. The government putting $2 billion in the dairy industry for what? I feel like they're not going to do something like that unless they get something out of it. Think about it. Think about it. Think about it.
Suddenly, dairy farmers who had been hurting were flush with cash and producing as much milk as they could in order to take advantage of the government's support. The government purchased the milk dairy farmers couldn't sell and began to process it into cheese, butter, and dehydrated milk powder. As dairy farmers produced more and more milk, stockpiles ballooned. Eventually, the stockpile hit over 500 million pounds, stored in hundreds of warehouses across 35 states.
That is smart on the government's behalf. That is smart. Matter of fact, that's it. I feel like it just answered it. Do you think they did all that because that way this cheese is theirs? So like technically they own cheese. You know what I'm saying?
The huge supply was a problem,
They have so much cheese they don't need the farmers.
but there was another catch. The government had no idea what to do with all that cheese. Probably the cheapest and most practical thing to do would be to dump it into the ocean, a USDA official told the Washington Post in 1981. There was also a confusion as to how
Even crazier, dude. This man said, let's dump this cheese in the ocean, knowing there's homeless people. Not saying that a homeless dude should be out here eating cheese and all that shit, but like, come on, dude. What the fuck? They're like, let's just throw it to the ocean. Let's not give a fuck. Like, yeah, people are starving, but like, so what? That's crazy.
long the processed American cheese, designed to be stored for long periods of time, really lasted. As officials scrambled behind the scenes to figure out how to deal with the cheese, the conundrum became public when the Agricultural Secretary John R. Block showed up at a White House event
Really? Really? Our block, nigga, block of cheese? Nigga, is that what it comes from?
with a 5-pound block of greening, moldy cheese and showed it to the press. "We've got 60 million of these that the government owns," he said. "It's moldy, it's deteriorating, we can't find a market for it.
Blue cheese. These niggas made blue cheese. This is shit, man. This is only getting deeper, right? I don't know if they actually made blue cheese, but we can find out.
We can't sell it, and we're looking to try and give some of it away." As the public got wind of the existence of all that surplus cheese, it began to sharply criticize then President Ronald Reagan. He had been elected in part by pledging to reduce the federal food stamp program. But there were hungry Americans still suffering from the after effects of the recession.
That's what I was saying this whole time. I've been saying it the whole time.
Why not give them the cheese? In December of 1981, Reagan relented. At a time when American families are under increasing financial pressure, their government cannot sit by and watch millions of pounds of food turn to waste, he said in a public address. As a result, he said he'd free 30 million pounds of cheese from the country's stockpile.
Think about it. 30 million, but I think earlier they were saying they had over 500 million pounds. So 30 million is technically nothing out of that 500 million. It's just a piece of it. And dude, think about it. If they were talking about the fucking cheese molding, does that mean that they gave it to like giving the moldy cheese to the people? I don't know.
Temporary Emergency Food Assistance Program, which began handing out the blocks of processed cheese to the elderly and low-income communities and the organizations that serve them. It was given away for free by pickup to people at food banks, community centers, and so on. Now known as government cheese, the pungent-smelling cheese, which tasted somewhere between Velveeta and American cheese, was ultimately distributed to the tune of 300 million pounds. The United States government finally got out of the cheese storing business in the 1990s, when dairy prices started to calm down. Flash forward to 2019, when the US again found itself storing cheese.
Again, this is a nice ass place. This underground facility for fucking cheese. It is nice. Look how perfect those cheese fucking rolls are. Pristine. Interesting.
This time to the tune of 1.4 billion pounds. Yet it was not the government storing it. It is almost entirely owned by private companies now.
You heard it. I didn't say it.
Amid trade disputes and declining dairy consumption nationally, the American government has been subsidizing dairy products, with companies stockpiling America's surplus cheese. So deep under Springfield, Missouri, the industrial-sized cheese cave, 2 million square feet in size.
Wait, huh? Could I go to this place in Missouri? I'll go. I'll take a trip.
Cheese. So deep under Springfield, Missouri, the industrial...
Springfield, Missouri. That's not even far. That's not even far from me, I don't think.
Sized cheese cave, 2 million square feet in size, has been allocated for storing cheese.
Time out, time out, time out. How big is 2 million square feet?
2 million square feet is equivalent to 0.0717 square miles.
What the fuck? Um, yeah, let's look at this. How many square feet's in an acre? 43,000 square feet is in an acre. Okay, wait, so watch this. This is what we're gonna do. 2 million square feet into acres.
2 million square feet is equal to 45.914 acres.
45 acres. Almost 46 acres of fucking cheese. Acres are in 2 million square feet.
2 million square feet is equal
That's 45 football fields. Holy shit. Dog. What? Do you think that's why cheese is so popular? Yeah, like, this is actually crazy to think about. Imagine we had so much cheese that they probably introduced the cheeseburger. Unless they had cheeseburgers back then. We had so much cheese that we're like mac and cheese. They were like, we have all this fucking cheese. Let's make some fucking foods with this fucking cheese. So they were like, okay, let's make mac and cheese. Let's make cheeseburgers. I don't know. This is actually interesting shit. I don't know.
Though demand is declining, production is not. It has risen 13% since 2010. In 2016, the American dairy industry dumped a whopping 43 million gallons of milk into fields. Though this waste is staggering, it is also not representative of the size of the surpluses being run by dairy farms.
So, wait, why did they do this, though?
The dairy industry received $43 billion in 2016 and $36.3 billion in 2017 from the federal government. In 2018, 42% of revenue for U.S. dairy producers came from some kind of government support. It is important to note that the dairy lobby is largely responsible for influencing politics to dedicate this money for the industry.
Huh? What?
And the money mostly goes to big dairy companies that fund the lobby, leaving smaller operations to fend for themselves in the increased.
Appreciate it, child of God. Appreciate it. We're just learning. We're learning about the cheese caves.
Increasingly competitive market. Also, although the number 1.4 billion pounds sounds like a lot, and it is, let's take a moment to put it into perspective.
Look, I did all this perspective shit earlier. If I would have known this was going to come up, I would have never said anything. I appreciate you too.
According to USDA statistics, the average American eats 34.1 pounds of cheese every year and is projected to eat
big bag,
36.5 pounds by 2024. Because we are still outpacing supply with demand, the Clinton administration started Dairy Management Incorporated in the 1990s to help move dairy products that were less and less in demand. With an annual budget of $140 million, this offshoot.
That's their budget. That's actually insane. Money laundering, I don't know, maybe not.
Shoot of the Department of Agriculture works to get Americans to consume more dairy, even though the Department of Health and Human Services has conducted studies showing that dairy might not be as healthy to consume regularly as once thought, and 36% of Americans are lactose intolerant.
Wait, what? That's a high percentage.
Dairy Management Incorporated, nonetheless, launches campaigns like the infamous Got Milk ads, Taco Bell Cheesy Crust, Taco Bell Double Steak Quesadillas, and milk as part of a federal school lunch program.
That's what it is. Think about that. Ever since then, they were like, we have too much milk. Let's fucking enforce it on children to drink milk every day.
They even build.
Think about that. That's crazy. I've never drank more milk in my life. Matter of fact, they probably made up the stuff that milk is actually healthy for your teeth or something like that. I don't know.
Domino's out after the 2010 recession as part of an attempt to keep Americans eating cheese. Dairy management's.
Why though? That's my question. Why do you want us to eat so much cheese? Why? What's in the cheese, dude? Dude, same. I drink, dude. I was chugging milk, dude. If it were me, like, and I had the money back in the day, dude, I'd be fucking chugging a gallon of milk at fucking lunch. I'd sometimes get two milks at lunch. Fuck you mean?
Its main strategy has been to increase consumer confidence in milk and dairy products by expounding the health benefits and nutritional value.
So, like, it's crazy to think about too. Like, do you think that like say milks? Do you think milk actually helps bone growth? No, I swear, dude. I was getting chalky milk all day, dude. And that chalky milk is gas, though. I even heard a theory about chalky milk, but chocolate milk and strawberry milk, it's actually disgusting, and it will probably steer you from trying to fucking drink that shit again. But dude, chocolate milk's so good though.
These efforts aimed at increasing consumer consumption have been successful. Despite the decrease in milk consumption among Americans, the average American consumes 14 more pounds of cheese a year than they did in 1990. Prisons have contracts with national and state dairy producers.
Of course though, if there's milk in schools and all that shit, of course it's going to, you know what I mean. And then Domino's got bailed out, and they're using their cheese, dude. I don't know. I mean, I just don't understand why they want us. Why is there two football field? I mean, two baseball fields. What the hell? Anyways, like,
Schools opt into government programs that subsidize and push dairy products, and charitable organizations still receive cheese donations from the US government, albeit less than they did in the 80s.
why the wheat? But okay.
Schools play a large part in propping up the milk industry as well. School milk
No, swear. Like, dude, give me water or something, juice. Dude, I just wonder, like, if, dude, like, watching this video, they're forcing it. They're like, yo, we have all this milk and stuff. We bought all these products. We have farmers, they're working with farmers to get all this milk. I just don't want to know why they need us to have so much milk. Like, they're just forcing it on you. It's actually crazy. Like, dude, it wouldn't even surprise me if they had this genius idea. They're like, we're going to get rid of all of the fucking water fountains in the school. Let's just do milk fountains. Fuck it.
accounts for about 7% of all fluid milk
That's a little extreme, but they might do it. You never know.
sales in the United States. This is due in part to the fact that the National School Lunch Program requires fluid milk be offered daily alongside freed meals.
What milk? No one's
The
ever
special
heard of that,
milk
dude.
program further promotes dairy-heavy school meals, reimbursing all participating schools for their fluid milk purchases in full in an effort to lower milk prices.
First of all, this is not even school food. This is fucking jail food. When the fuck have you ever got lasagna at school? What the fuck? Hell no. I don't even remember. That's a brick of fucking lasagna. A brick of lasagna for a school meal? This is fucking prison.
Even without the government endorsement, dairy has no problem finding its way into schools. Students who are behind on lunch payments are sometimes offered cheese sandwiches as a replacement for a conventional lunch.
Hell no.
The cheese caves are a difficult problem to solve, one that is persisting into its 5th decade. It seems unlikely that we will be able to export the cheese beyond American borders, as approximately 70% of the world as a whole is lactose intolerant, and those that do consume cheese
Wait, how much did he say? There's no way he said 70. I thought he said 30%. I'm tripping. Give me a second.
as approximately 70% of the world as a whole is lactose intolerant.
Dog, if 70% of the world is lactose intolerant, does that mean that we are not meant to drink milk? That's what that would mean, right? Rats? You might, you might become a full rat. That's crazy. Hell yeah. No, I understand that completely. Hell yeah. Fucking full rat. That's
And
fucking
those that do
hilarious.
consume cheese, mainly European nations, tend to dislike the American variety in favor of their own products. And nobody, with the exception of the guy that wanted to throw it into the ocean, wants
Dude, wait for it. Dude, as much milk as we've been drinking, dude, I mean, we should fucking have whiskers, dude, and a fucking tail. There's no joke about it. Parmesan and queso. Dude, queso's gas, dude. Queso might be the best cheese ever. I don't know. That's a really crazy take, but you never know.
It's to see all that good food go to waste. It seems as though the dairy industry is locked in a stalemate. Dairy farmers don't want to produce less. Americans can only eat so much more, and there is only so much space underground to keep storing cheese.
Dude, wait a second. So these are cavern caves and other. What the fuck does that short and absent mean? I don't even know what the fuck that means. Short? Does that, dude? All of Florida is made out of cheese, dude. Nah, dude, they're trying to keep them in the cave so that they keep cool. You're telling me that Florida don't exist? Nigga. Huh? All of Florida it's a cheese state, dog. They talking about Wisconsin, dude. Nah, Florida's literally made out of cheese. The entire state of Florida is an underground cheese factory, dude. Willy Wonka of cheese. That's crazy work. This could be interesting. Let's check this out.
There is a gigantic cave of cheese underneath my city. Uninitiated, my name is Austin. I hail from Springfield, a
Springfield, Missouri. That's what they were
former
saying.
cowtown turned third largest city in the state of Missouri. Springfield's pretty swell. Aside from being the birthplace of Route 66, the home of Bass Pro Shops, and the Wonders of Wildlife Museum, it has several lakes, almost 100 parks, over 100 miles of bike trails, and numerous underground caves. Missouri has in fact long been known as the Cave State, with over 7,000 documented, some public, many private. These caves
Private caves is kind of wild. What the hell? How do you own a cave? Is that even a thing?
Caves are often quite beautiful, with rich history and folklore. Probably the most well-known in our city is Fantastic Caverns, which operated as an underground speakeasy in the 1920s and...
Yo, that's lit, though. That's lit, though. Can you imagine? Could you imagine? No, I would want to get one too, but like, who's to say? Like, how much does a cave... Oh, how much does a fucking cave cost? You know what I mean? And this speakeasy, dude, this looks lit. These motherfuckers was getting turned. They was getting turned.
And now, 100 years later, serves as one of the city's most popular tourist traps. But as Greta Cross of the Springfield News Leader notes, the town's underground cheese cave isn't actually a natural cavern, rather...
Oh, look at this. A part of a 3.2 million square foot warehouse under the part of Springfield, Missouri. That's insane.
It's part of a 3.2 million square foot high security warehouse known as Springfield Underground. Originally started in 1946 as the family-owned Greisemer limestone quarry, after successfully scratching the surface.
Dude, yes. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. They store that much cheese. Dude, I did the math earlier. 45... One of the facility was 2 million square feet, which end up being 45 acres. If you want to know how much an acre is, it's about a football field. So I think it is a football field. So it's 45 football fields. If I'm tripping, I don't know. I could be definitely wrong. But anyways, 45 football fields of fucking cheese products, dude. What? Nah, I swear, dude. If you walk in there and just smell the cheese, you might fucking pass out. You might die.
The mining operation moved underground, and by 1960 had become one of the biggest limestone mining operations in the country, with enough being removed to build a 250,000-foot operations warehouse. 5.5 decades and over 31 million tons of limestone later, the Greisemer Stone Company started to realize that profits would stop once the limestone ran out, so...
See? You see what I'm saying? So, like... See, it just happened to work out. They're like, we're going to get the limestone, but what are we going to do after all the limestone's gone? Oh, wait. We could store some fucking cheese in this bitch. Lane, what's poppin'?
So they shifted from the mining business to the storage business. Cold storage. The ambient temperature of the former limestone mine is a constant 62 degrees, and with 3.2 million square feet free from topside exposure...
Dog. Yes, we're watching the cheese cave conspiracies. What's crazy too is, and before you even join, they said something about they had buckets of cheese that weighed 600 pounds, barrels, and there was, dude, like a million of them.
Exposure and an on-site maintenance crew that works around the clock to manage the temperature of buildings from 55 degrees Fahrenheit all the way down to -20, the site is the perfect environment to store refrigerated foods. The ins and outs of this underground facility used to be better known, but starting around 2015, the company began playing things a bit closer to the vest. Public tours were halted.
Why? What are you trying to hide in the fucking cheese cave, dude?
Entrances are now heavily guarded and require special access. Clientele became less publicized, but what we do know is that the facility is state-of-the-art. The underground contains...
Holy... Dude, look how smooth that concrete is. Dude, this is... Look at the lighting! Dude, this isn't a cave. Just look at the fucking... Just the poles and the lighting, dude. Like, this is some... Big money, dog.
Contains several buildings that range from 50,000 to 400,000.
There's a fucking train station under the cave, dude. That's crazy. That's just crazy.
400,000 square feet. It sports 224 docking doors, has a specialized fire protection system, contains 3 miles of lit underground roadway, and even has its own powered rail system. It's pretty much straight out of Half-Life. But perhaps...
What the fuck? See, you're telling me you have all that down there just for some fucking cheese, dude? For cheese? That's it? Cheese? Dude, they are hiding the world's greatest weapon under there, dude. I don't know. Honestly, I feel like if the cave collapsed, the cheese might fucking hold it. It'd fucking sponge it and it just bounce back. I don't know.
The most impressive thing about Springfield Underground is that so few people know that it's even there. Despite it having direct access to Highway 65 and Interstate 44, most residents of Springfield are blissfully ignorant of the fact that their town contains a massive underground facility that stores classified material from highly confidential clients. I'm not saying there are zombies down there, but I'm also not saying that there aren't. So, okay.
Spitting facts, dude. He's spitting facts. And what's even crazier to think about, when we just seen Florida with the caves in Florida, dog, I can only imagine what they're hiding in Florida. All of Florida, a whole state, everything underground, cheese. Crazy work.
Okay, enough about this crazy facility. Where did the cheese thing come from? Is it a joke? Some kind of weird, elaborate hoax? Well, actually, no. The Cheese Cave of Springfield, Missouri is very real, and you can thank the federal government. So, federal food and farming laws go through the United States Department of Agriculture, better known as the USDA. These are the folks that make sure your food is safe to eat.
Not about the government cheese, how they keep it.
Yes.
In the cave. What'd you do to Yoda?
Yeah, that was a joke. Oh my god. The joke was cheesy. Okay.
See, knowing that Uncle Sam...
That's a crazy cheese. Oh my god, you're milking the cheese jokes.
Sam had promised to buy all of their remaining stock. These dairy farmers...
Y'all, wait, I'm trying to think of a joke. I couldn't do it, sorry.
Because, I mean, they're gonna buy it, right? Right! And the more the government bought, the more they had to store. We're talking hundreds of millions of pounds of cheese. DA finally decided to...
Hundreds of millions, dude. Look at this. This is insanity.
The cheese caves are real.
Dog, that's not real cheese. There's no way. Look at that.
They're so shiny.
Dude, y'all ever seen the thing in the Olympics where they have that rock and then they throw the rock and they have the brooms and they're going like this?
Yeah.
That's what this fucking thing looks like.
The scenes, including selling some of this inventory to private companies, the storage of much of these stockpiles is handled by none other than Springfield Underground.
Interesting.